your customers' houses.
That's correct.
Jeff, this is just one of many projects that you've done like this, and we've had the pleasure of working on a lot of these jobs with you over the years. Could you do me a favor and just take a moment and explain what it is that has you working with airlock insulation again and again?
Yeah, I could do that. I'd be glad to. So we've been working with airlock, as we know it, for many years, and for the years prior, we worked with your father back when it was his world, and we're very proud of that relationship. I'm happy to have been a client of your father's back when you were kind of young and starting off, and I think a handful of points about why I'm so jazzed up about airlock and why I continue to use you exclusively for my clients is a fewfold. 1, safety. 2, comfort. 3, reliability. There are a number of people out there who hire us as the general contractor, and when they hire us, they entrust me to be sort of the custodian of their dollars. Like, I am the person they trust with their money. So I got to figure out on each aspect of the build, where's the most efficient and responsible way to spend those dollars.
That makes sense.
And when it comes to insulation, it's like a no-brainer to go with new walls, cellulose fiber insulation. What I have come to appreciate about the insulation, among other things, comfort. In my own house recently, you guys came and sucked out all the various iterations of insulation that were in the house. I bought a new home that was built 20-some years ago. It had some fibers, it had
blown
bats,
fiberglass
it
in the
had
ceiling.
all kind of stuff, right.
Yeah, and it had fiberglass bats in the walls.
And before we started the renovation, I wanted you to get all that out of there. So we had a clean slate to work with. We could move walls around without the airborne irritant of whatever insulation was in there. And then we also added it back in both in the ceiling and in the walls. And the difference that made was tangible. And we talk a lot about comfort, like your home is going to be comfortable. And people think, I'll just be sitting around in the newspaper, reading in front of the fire, and it'll be warm and comfortable. And that's to some extent true. It's also true in the sense that it's easier on your heating and cooling equipment. You don't have the high highs and the low lows. It really levels everything out.
Yeah.
And makes it so, people have a home that's, you're not even necessarily aware of the fact that there's temperature changes outside. Your heating and cooling equipment is keeping up with it.
Okay.
Very favorable.
So you mentioned safety. What stands out to you when you say that?
So with other insulations, combustibility is a big concern. In any home, you have things that can cause a fire, and whether it's behind the wall or not, you have ignition points. So when you stuff that wall cavity full of a non-combustible material, it renders that entire wall a non-combustible wall. Again, both for health and safety and for comfort, but just knowing that if there should be a fire that breaks out, you don't have to worry about the entire house going up in smoke. It's probably going to be limited just to the area where the fire started. It's not a small thing that I think about when I make that decision.
Okay, that's good. And then as far as comfort, what are you thinking there?
Again, comfort refers to, for me, it refers to the home's ability to maintain a temperature without overtaxing the equipment. And the equipment in this case would be your heating and cooling system, which are frankly machines. They don't care. If they're on, they're on. If they're off, they're off. They don't care. They don't have feelings. People say, oh, I don't want my furnace to have to work so hard. I get that. But really, it's for the longevity of the equipment and for the sort of the maintenance of the humidity and temperature inside the house. It goes a long way to having, the right insulation in the walls there and the ceiling.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So Airlock Insulation is a second generation company, started originally by Tony Wolf, my father, back in 1989. He was the first one in the state of Ohio to be doing blower door testing on his homes and trying to, do a full thorough air seal. And along the path, Jeff, you became a fan and a regular customer of my father's, and you pretty much look forward to having that experience with my father. Could you touch on that?
I would love to, yeah. Woolly Bully was kind of a unique entity. It was very much a handshake deal that your dad had with people. Like, your father wasn't big on contracts. He wasn't a huge fan of the sort of administration. He was just about getting in there, doing his job, and getting it done. And man, did he ever. So I started working with your dad probably in 2005, maybe 2006. And Discovered him after having done spray foam insulation in my very own building that we had just remodeled. We had just done foam through the whole thing. And the more I learned about foam after the fact, I was like, maybe not the best product. You know what I mean? It did a great job air sealing. It did a great job with sort of retention of heat and sort of maintenance of temperature, but I wanted something more, you know, and I started looking. That's when I discovered your father. And it was just a blast working with him. Like he was very much that guy that said, it will happen on Tuesday, we'll be done on Wednesday, we'll be there, clean up everything great. And to know now the history of what you two went through, like starting the business with all the equipment, you know, sort of pioneering. I mean, your dad was very much an innovator in Northeast Ohio and throughout the whole state, as far as I know.
Yeah.
And what a blast it was working with him. And then when it came time to hand over the reins to you, and you know, it was a no-brainer that we continue our collaboration, certainly under a different name. But
yeah, I remember the phone calls right after my father had passed away.
Yeah.
You were ready for your next job, and
right.
I wasn't ready to
You're
do
like,
it
yet. Can't do it. I'm like, then I'll wait. We're just gonna wait. We're not using someone else.
Something that's very important to me is that my father was a man of integrity. He raised me a specific way to, you know, the way you leave a house says everything about who you are. If you mess up your name, you're never going to get a chance to fix that. You know, those are some things that he instilled in me. And I hear him all the time, you know, guiding me through my jobs. And he would say, Joey, that's not how you do that. Or you're going to need to do this, because if you don't, they're not going to trust you, you know. And I hear all kinds of stuff like that resonating through my head. So from your perspective, I feel that it's been a challenge living up to his standards.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering if how we've done with airlock insulation versus the experience that you had with my dad.
Well, my experience with your dad, we were a much smaller company. We were, you know, one job at a time, very infrequent, maybe 1 or 2 jobs a year, you know, and now we're doing 5 or 6 times that, you know what I mean? You guys every month, every other month, you're on a project for me. So to be able to speak to that difference, it's almost academic. We've evolved as well. But you're right when you say, you know, integrity is what you do when no one's looking. You know, you got to make sure you cover all your bases, all your employees know what they're doing when they get here. The setup crew is generally getting the mesh up on the walls and stretching the fabric and getting the house prepped and putting on the air blocking and caulking the seal and all that stuff, while the outside crew is getting ready to do their thing. And it kind of flows somewhat organically, but I'm sure it's not by accident. You know, there's an orchestration of manpower, machine, and material there on your part that helps make that all happen. So to have gone from Tony and the Woolly Bully experience to Joseph and the airlock experience, it's an evolution of that, but I think all those foundation pieces are very much still there.
Well, it's really a pleasure to hear you say that, and I can tell you that working with you helps to keep him alive and his memory alive, and having talks with you about him has always been very tender.
He's a good guy. He was a great guy, and someone who, and I honestly admire how he just ran his business. It was like literally handshake, we'll be there, we'll do the work, you have the check, we'll do another one.
And he never let you down.
And right, and that was the cool thing about it. You know, I think a lot of suppliers in our business right now are very much caught up in sort of the big business mindset, and everything is mechanized, and contracts and that kind of agreements and things like that. Not that it shouldn't be, but I enjoy the familiarity. I enjoy knowing that you're the guy when I have a need, you're there for me. Yeah. Knowing that if I have a problem, I pick up the phone, problem goes away. And there haven't been many. They've been very few and far between. So
that's exciting. I'm really glad to hear that. It's an honor to work with you. You have an excellent reputation yourself. I've experienced many of your customers, just raving fans about the work that you do. They're so happy. I mean, you can look at the work that he's done here, and this is just one of many situations that I've personally experienced. And you know, Jeff has become one of our dependable clients, where, you know, he is also respectful to us, lets us know as far ahead of time when he's going to need us, what he's going to need us for. He gives me the information, packages it, and hands it over to me almost seamless. And that's one of the things I love about Jeff's business at Lost Pond Construction. He is absolutely meticulous and detailed, and he's a man of his word. And it's been a pleasure and honor working with you for all these years, and I continue to look forward to working together more with you.
Many more.
Absolutely.
Many more.
Thanks for having this meeting, Jeff.
Let's keep them coming.
Absolutely.
All right.